What's happening, everyone? Welcome to my channel. This is Living in Alberta, and today we're going to talk about one of the most popular lake towns to live in Central Alberta, or all of Alberta for that matter. We're going to take a look at some of the reasons or some of the potential negatives of why you may not want to live in this area. Let's take a look at Sylvan Lake. All right, let's dive right into it. This is one of the most popular places to move to in Central Alberta. It's got one of the fastest growing real estate markets. Sylvan Lake is a very popular area. It's a beautiful lake town. We don't have a lot of lakes in Alberta. Alberta's not really known for that. A lot of people who move here, that's one thing they say, especially coming from Ontario. They say what they really miss is all the lakes that they have back out east. So lots of people have their eyes on Sylvan Lake because it's one of the closest things to homes. But let's dive into the number one thing that you're going to want to consider if you're thinking of moving to Sylvan Lake. The number one perceived or potential con of living there. And that is how busy this lake town gets. It only has about 17,000 people, but it's estimated that throughout the summer months, Sylvan Lake will have about 1 million people visit it. It is a very popular tourist destination, and you can imagine how busy this is going to make this smaller lake town. Everything is going to get busier, from grocery stores to gas stations to restaurants. Small businesses are going to be busier, which is a good thing if you own a small business. But if you don't like an area that's going to be really busy like this, you might want to consider somewhere else, maybe somewhere a little bit more quiet, like Blackfalds or Lacombe.
Is it always this busy?
Life's always crazy busy in the summer.
Another thing to consider, and again, this is why it's super important to really dive deep into where you're going to live if you're thinking of living in Sylvan Lake. I have a friend who lives up in the cottage area, which is right up almost on Lakeshore Drive. And she says during some of the busiest times in the summer months, even if she's just trying to get out of her house and go to the grocery store, there is so much traffic down there that it can be kind of a pain in the ass, she said, trying to get out of her house, get out of the cottage area, go to whatever business she's going to go to. So that is definitely something to consider.
Always traffic. Always traffic.
Now, there are absolutely places in Sylvan, neighborhoods that you can live in where you can come home and there can be thousands of people up on the beach, up on Lakeshore Drive. And if you're living in the right area, if you're living in a quiet area, you're not even going to notice it. For example, places like Lakeway Landing. I have a friend who lives up there. She says it doesn't matter what time of year it is. She can come home to her quiet neighborhood and she doesn't even notice all the stuff going up on Lakeshore Drive. 60 West, the Vistas, these are all farther away from the lake. So there are some quiet areas to live within this community. Now, some other things to consider is kind of the east side versus the west side. Now, there's 3 different exits that go into Sylvan Lake. Most of the people don't realize that. People who've never been here before, they're going to come from Red Deer Highway 2 and they're going to take that first exit into Sylvan Lake, which is on the east side of the community. So you can imagine with over 1 million people coming throughout those summer months, that this eastern side of the town is definitely going to have a busier feel to it. There's some neighborhoods that are going to back onto this exit. And again, it's just going to be really, really busy. So in my opinion, the west side is going to be a lot more quiet than the east side. So this is also, depending on what your taste is, something that you might want to factor in. Jumping in here, guys, I want to remind you that I am a licensed realtor in the area and I would love the opportunity to earn your business. So if you'd like to get a hold of me, use this information popping up, screenshot it, do whatever you need to, get a hold of me any way you'd like. All right, let's get back to the video. All right, we've talked about how busy it gets. And if that's not something that jives with you, you might want to consider living in a different small town within the area. But let's talk about the real estate market in Sylvan Lake. Now, for the longest time, it always kind of was a little bit more affordable than Red Deer. That has definitely changed with the popularity of the small town. If we look at some numbers from last year, and we'll touch on 2024 numbers too, but it's only March, so they're not going to be a super accurate representation. But last year, the median detached price in Sylvan Lake was $400,000. The median detached price in Red Deer was $380,000. So you're starting to see Sylvan Lake creep ahead. If we look at this year's numbers, and everything is up. Both markets are super competitive. We are definitely in major sellers markets in both areas. all over Alberta. But in 2024, we were at 404,000 through the first 3 months of this year. That's for Sylvan Lake, and in Red Deer, we're at 395,000. Now it is a super competitive market in Sylvan Lake. I have a lot of clients who are trying to get into homes here. I had a client that we had a home pop up last week. We got in there that day and we got an offer submitted before they got a ton of showings, just so we didn't go into multiple offers, because there's been few situations already where we'd already gone into multiple offer situations, and unfortunately we didn't win some of those homes.
Too bad. I want it.
Let this go. Just start something new.
But we're able to tie this one up before we got into multiples. So very busy real estate market. You're seeing those prices creep up. They're moving past Red Deer, and it's not going to slow down anytime soon. Those prices are going to continue to go up with all the people making the move to Alberta and Sylvan Lake, and just the popularity of the area. All right, let's talk about the next one. This one is a super common question that I asked about Sylvan Lake quite regularly, and I get it. People are concerned about the water table there. Obviously, living close to a body of water like that, there is going to be more potential for having some flooding issues. Now, the closer you are to the lake, the more potential risk there's going to be. There are some neighborhoods in Sylvan Lake that have been built on reclaimed swampland, so there is the higher potential again for risk in those areas of having some flooding issues or some moisture issues. With saying that, I've helped a few buddies sell their homes in this area, and they've never had any issues whatsoever. Most of the time their sump pit is dry, but definitely you're going to want to make sure that you are doing your due diligence with your sump pumps. Just about everywhere in Sylvan Lake is going to have a sump pump, and this, if water starts to, if we get some heavy rains or we get some runoff from the snow, when water starts to pool underneath your foundation, this pump kicks in and it redirects it away from the house. So super important to do your due diligence and do your maintenance and your upkeep with these sump pumps. It's never a bad idea to have a second one that's battery operated, because a lot of the times these are plugged into the wall, and when we get the most water is during a storm. And what happens during a storm, a lot of time that electricity goes out and then your sump pump isn't working. I had some clients who bought a home in Fox Run, and unfortunately they didn't check to make sure that their sump pump was running. We had some heavy rains, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago now, and unfortunately because of that they ended up getting some flooding in their basement. Now the farther you go south in Sylvan Lake, away from the lake, it kind of goes up a hill a little bit. So there's neighborhoods on the very southern border like Lakeaway Landing and the Vistas and 60 West, where they're much farther up that hill. And I got friends who live in all those areas, and they say their sump pump is dry all of the time, or their sump pit is dry all of the time. So definitely something to consider. You are near a body of water. There will be a higher water table, but definitely not a reason to scare you away from living in this area. Just make sure you're doing your due diligence and doing your upkeep on the things that you should be. All right, let's talk about a couple more potential cons of living in Sylvan Lake. One, if we look at where Sylvan Lake is located, you are pretty much in the heart of the Edmonton-Calgary corridor. Alberta isn't a big populous province. It's a big province. It doesn't have a huge population. We have 4.7 million people, and about 75 to 80% of those is within the Edmonton-Calgary corridor. So if you take Sylvan Lake, just being, the town that it is and an awesome area, add the location to it where there's tons of traffic, it makes it a very popular tourist destination, which also attracts a lot of investors to the area. So there is a lot of short-term rentals and Airbnbs. Lots of investors are looking to cash in on the area. Now, this isn't a bad thing per se. You can make a lot of money off these things. However, if you are a permanent resident of the town of Sylvan Lake, I have a buddy who lives a little closer up towards the lake, and just a couple houses down from him is an Airbnb. He says that a lot of the times throughout the summer, there is people partying there. There's loud music. It drives him crazy. He blasts his music back. I don't know if that's a good idea. And of course, sometimes you get families who are just looking for a quiet vacation. But with all the Airbnbs in the area, there is the potential to be close to one of those. And again, a lot of people who are looking to rent Airbnbs, they're looking for a good time. They're coming to Sylvan Lake on vacation. They're looking to let their hair down. You could have some, issues with loud music and partying.
I'm gonna be throwing a party at the neighborhood club.
Now let's touch on one more thing that a lot of clients who I've helped move to the area have brought to my attention. And it's something that I didn't think about as much, but if I sit here and think about it, it's actually true now. Now up on the lakeshore, there is, it's a beautiful walking along the lake. The town does a great job of keeping the area and decorating it. It's a beautiful spot, but there is not a lot of other walking trails within Sylvan Lake. So if that's something that you're looking for, places like Red Deer, you have the river valley and the trails go on for days. Black Falls, I would say, is actually even worse than Sylvan Lake, but Lacombe has lots of bodies of water and interconnected trails as well. Sylvan Lake really has Lakeshore Drive, and then there's one that basically cuts from east to west right down the middle of it, and that's really all that you're going to get. Now, I don't think this is a super big deal. Red Deer isn't far away if you want to go, even like if you were going from Sylvan Lake to Heritage Ranch, that is a super quick drive and you're immediately plugged into some of the best walking trails in the area and best parks. But I know I'm really splitting hairs here, trying to find some potential cons for you guys to think about living in this area, but Sylvan Lake definitely is lacking in the walking and the paths department. So something to consider. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, click that notification bell so you're notified every week when a new video comes out. And if you would like any help with your real estate needs, I'd love the opportunity to earn your business. Use this info popping up, shoot me a text, email, whatever you want. Would love to hear from you. All right, guys, I will see you next week. Cheers.